Imagine losing your phone, having your car stolen, and then needing to call the insurance. Now imagine being the one who handles the claims and deals with angry customers. How do they cope? We interviewed the global head of claims for Swiss Re Corso to learn more about the insurance claims world. Welcome to this podcast where we explore digital training, technologies, and insurance. I'm Philip, co-founder of the Engage Institute. We offer innovative training solutions for insurance companies worldwide. Do you struggle to capture the knowledge of your experts? Contact us. We'll record engaging interviews with them for you to share. Now, join me as we delve deeper into the insurance world together. Today on the show, I have a great pleasure to welcome Marc Scheidegger. Hi, Marc. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. What about you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm looking forward to a little discussion here. So, Marc, you're the Global Chief Claims Officer of the Swiss Re Corporate Solutions. What a title.
Well, it's just a title, right? I mean, it's basically the claims guy of the direct insurance arm of Swiss Re, the corporate solution business. Yeah.
You have 27 years of experience in claims and operations. It's quite long. And I would like to start asking you a question. Marc, you spend your life dealing with grumpy people who want money from you. What kind of life is that?
It's a wonderful life, Philip. I'm sure we will go through that a little bit in the discussion here. Initially, how it all started for me was actually helping. So when I was an apprentice at an insurance company in Switzerland at the time, Altina, for those who know it, I was actually hooked on to the idea to help. So these so-called grumpy people who have a problem actually had a damaged windscreen, a damaged car, something that was dear to them. And they were in an unhappy moment contacting the insurance companies to test somewhat what they had to pay money for as well would pay back now. And so I didn't ever see them as grumpy. I saw them as people who needed help in a more difficult situation that was difficult for them or was as well emotional to them. So no, I love helping. So for me, I'm not dealing with grumpy people. I'm dealing often with very demanding people. That's a big difference.
And I like what you're saying. I didn't think about that. You say I'm helping people. Hearing that from a claims manager, that's interesting. What are claims actually for some of our youngest viewers? What are you doing with these claims?
I always would say for those who maybe are not in insurance, it's like an excellent business idea, right? And when you look at claims in its simplest form, is nothing different than a formal request by a policyholder or a third party, depending on the constellation, to get something out and say, well, now something happened, can I actually claim and can I get something out, and to see if they're really covered for what happened to them.
But aren't you the guys with the small prints in the contract or the long thing that nobody reads and you say, oh, sorry, was not covered?
It's quite a provocative question at the early stage of this discussion, but it's actually interesting. And you have to be very clear what's in scope of an insurance and what's not. And that makes it then a bit feel like you guys are actually trying to find your way out. I would as well try to oppose that, right? I mean, when I look at the statistics, claims are actually getting paid. Maybe sometimes not to the full amount you want, but this kind of perception we're trying to get out is something that I hear, think about me going to a dinner, right? Go around the table, what do people do? I tell them claims, I get at least 5 stories why claims is never paying and why we pay premium. And then you see at these particular stories, and there are always these stories where we said no and didn't pay as much, or where people were not aware there's a deductible or I have a time value on my phone. It's always these things where I sometimes feel the insurance industry maybe needs to play a little bit a better role to make things easier to understand. And yes, I have some sympathy for thinking maybe conditions and the wordings and the small print should be a bit less. But they're not intended badly, right? We have to have it in there from a legal point of view, and when you think about what the regulators ask you sometimes to content, so that's a cheap excuse to add 2 pages, but there are things we have to have in there, and other things are born over time. But yeah, simpler, sometimes better, I do agree.
But couldn't it be done like in a different way with new tech? I don't know. How could these 28 pages become some visuals, a one-pager? Is that an impossible thing to do?
It's not, no. I mean, especially when you think about corporate solutions, they're more in the commercial space with big corporates, right? So there maybe not, but even there, as an example, I would say products like parametrics are something that you've seen coming. So I'll give you an example. This is a policy wording around an earthquake. They just had an earthquake the other day in Japan. And then the policy would say if the earthquake is, let's say, magnitude 8, your policy pays out the amount X, right? So you can do that much simpler. It's like a very simplified form. The customer knows exactly what they're getting once that kind of metric in their policy is triggered. So yes, there are other more innovative ways, but the traditional market still functions in a very traditional way, I would say, for the commercial space. And also consumers, right? There's a lot of innovation coming in many ways, where I think as well disruptors have tried to simplify it to 1-2 pages conditions, to be very, very clear, very, very on point what an insurance covers and what not. So yeah, there's tendencies to do that simpler for the consumer business more so currently than for the corporates, but as well in the corporate world where things are sometimes a bit more complicated and a bit more bespoke, I think even there are a lot of possibilities.
So on the claims side, how many claims managers do you have in the team?
So claims people, everybody in corporate solutions is about 300 people a day touching claims in some way or format. Doesn't sound maybe so big. We're working a lot with partners. We're working as well a lot with corporates, which just have a different frequency. If you were to ask the same questions to a colleague from a more private personal line consumer business, that would be totally different numbers, right? Provided technology is not used in the amount. So for us, that's about 300 people around the world across all the continents, and the teams have different size.
But you just touched, maybe I should have started with that. Swiss Re Corporate Solutions. What do you guys do actually?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. Last week I was in the St. Gallen Symposium. We are one of the sponsors there. And I went around talking with young future professionals like students in the final years and etc. And they all have an idea what Swiss Re is. They get the name, they think it's Swiss in there and the Re, and it's somewhat insuring insurance companies. But then I start talking about corporate solutions and they look at me like, so you're telling me reinsurance in your name doesn't do necessarily only Re? And that's the thing, right? I mean, the corporate solution is the direct business arm of Swiss Re. We're about 10, 11 years old as a business. And it's basically our direct access to the direct market. We are not a mass provider. We're not a commodity in the market. We are very specialized where we want to play and basically play in areas where we think we have a place to and a right to play, which would be things like international programs or very complex risks to structures. And so it's interesting to understand that Swiss Re has some of both parts, right? I mean, the direct business and the reinsurance side.
So you do reinsure some of these big risks you take with other reinsurers potentially?
It's a natural thing to do, right? I mean, as a company, you ask yourself what capacity you put into the market, how you do deploy your capital. And sometimes in the market, because there's risks you maybe accept on your balance sheet and then you reinsure them, maybe have very attractive insurance conditions. There's all different kind of things from your own risk management to your capital constraints over to your risk selection, right? So, of course, you have to run a smart reinsurance program to make sure that you manage your own business sustainably over time. So it's a very natural thing to do, yes.
Could we know what's the percentage you reinsure with Swiss Re versus the others?
No, as much as it interests you, it's not something I can really publicly disclose.
I tried, Mark. Now, what kind of clients would you have for corporate solutions? So that's we understand.
So it's corporates, it's multinationals, it's company at a certain size. It's companies with very special risk settings. Maybe you've seen in preparation, we as well do innovative risk solutions. So sometimes risk transfer is not the only solution. Finding a more innovative, creative approach to risk, maybe as well helping leveraging certain things into more structured fronting solutions, captive solutions, all kind of things, right? So the corporates we're insuring are companies that, as I said, like have a certain size, certain degree of expectations against service, but as well against our capacity to structure certain things. So we're not touching consumers, we're not touching the lowest of bands, but generally our insured is always a company. Yeah.
Well, you said you were at these St. Gallen Symposiums. St. Gallen is a top university in Switzerland, and you were there. I mean, is that really sexy to become a claims manager? Did you really have students saying, wow, I'm dreaming of doing your job one day?
It's an interesting question. If I may take a quick step back, how I got here, right? I mean, it's a technical function to bear in mind. And I remember when I was around 16, my dad said, well, you're good with money. Why don't you test insurance? It's the other side. It's the other guys. That's who you're. And I felt like, well, that sounds very appealing. So I more reluctantly than willingly did that and went to Alpina. I know that's a part of Zurich these days. And went through the departments from sales, of underwriting, of all the different angles, finance. And I ended in the last 2 days, I came to claims. And I realized I love that stuff. I can help. I can do something with the company's money and go into like these grumpy people you mentioned on the intro, and I can help. So I wasn't looking for that. When I tell people and St. Gallen know a bit my story, how I got into claims myself, they realized that not many people may be waking up in the morning saying, I'm going to start claims, but there are sometimes ways how things develop and how things go. And what I encourage people is to remain open and curious and think about what are you actually good at. Don't think about a particular department or a profession or a particular role, but think about what you're good at. And the thing I was good at was at helping. I love to interact with people. I'm quite chatty, as you can imagine. And so these things help me as well as a claims guy to take people that have a damaged car, so I can talk with them, I can calm them down, I give them peace of mind, make sure repair is organized, they get a new windscreen or whatever it is. And so I think these skills I had maybe at that time helped me to move into that, but I never imagined a career in claims. And I think you should have to remind people in St. Gallen about how to think about career as well. And as well as an industry, there's another takeaway is we're not so good sometimes to explain our role in society and as well what claims does, right? So to your point.
We hear a lot from people we interviewed. Well, I never planned on coming to the insurance industry. And in your case, I never planned on coming to the insurance industry and going to claims management. So how big is the claim part in a company? Because there's obviously the guy making the money and the guy spending the money on claims. Or the underwriters versus the claim managers. What's the balance between the two?
Well, you need to really look at which line of business you're talking, right? So let's establish the principle that to make money in insurance company, your so-called combined ratio, which is a combination of your losses, of your expenses and your fees to brokers and other ways of distribution, that you need to remain below 100. So to make money, you need to be below 100 of the combined ratio. So let's establish that fact. Then you need to do that potentially in every line of business you're selling, or at least across the line of businesses. Maybe sometimes you have one above and one below. It's a bit portfolio management in its rawest form. And maybe the second part is how insurance companies make money is, of course, on the investment side. And the current heightened inflation and interest rate hike helps a bit on that side. But generally, you have to understand the world in this. What's a good loss ratio? To your point about what goes out, that depends really on your business, on your customers, on what you're doing. And I've seen areas where it's like 60, 65% as a good proxy. I've seen it where it's 80%, but the cost is very slim. Your goal should always be stay below 100 if you can through the hard and the soft market cycles. You need to really manage your portfolio. But I cannot, of course, tell you what Swiss Re Corso has, right? I mean, that would be too much to
That would be very interesting, though. But
So I urge you to read our publications on the quarter results and see if you can figure it out from that.
So how do you interact with the underwriting departments? How much interactions do you have with these guys?
But that's super important, Philip. First of all, let's establish the following principles. And I'm not stealing from Bob Marley here, right? But no claims, no insurance. So if you ever hear this song again on the radio, think about no claims.
That's going to be the big sentence.
That's on my bucket list of things to do in my life, to record a song, right? And me singing, I'm not sure you guys want that. But the dialogue with underwriting is super, super important. First of all, as I said, no claims, no insurance. So if things don't break, there's nothing to protect, or things cannot break. So why would you so that's where I'm coming from. I know the world is not that simple, right? But from things going south, from things getting destroyed, you as well then need to talk with underwriting how things can be protected, to what conditions, to what frequency something happens, and if it happens, how bad is it, or the severity. And so the dialogue between claims, the ongoing dialogue before claims, during claims, after claims, is just fundamental to run a sustainable insurance company. If you don't learn from your claims, you miss the entire fun, right?
So basically, the underwriting people normally would come to claims, say, hey, what can go wrong here? And then start developing a model with the actuaries, the great math guys, to have a proper underwriting model. Is that how it works?
Not all the time, but this is the way it can work. Yes, there's other ways where you do newer, there's sometimes products where you don't have a claims history. A couple of years back, we all started selling cyber insurance, exactly. And then you try to see what external proxies you else can find, what data you find, and you build your model on the go. That's why I'm saying the dialogue is important as well during and after, because as you learn, and other risks are more like traditional casualty insurance for businesses, like in a certain sector. That's been there for years, and then you need to factor in other trends like social inflation as such, and maybe the supply chains disruptions or whatever it is. So the dialogue is just so essential. And if I may, I would add as well risk engineering to that. In the commercial space, we as well use a lot of risk engineering to add to the equation of underwriting and claims discussion. And why risk engineering? These guys go out to look at sites, at like production sites, as an example, and understand the risk before it happens. This has so many benefits, not just to give us a better impression of how much money you have to ask from the customer for, but as well, how can we help them to prevent certain things to happen?
You need a healthy amount of claims to justify insurance and price the next year.
That's well spoken. I mean, that goes back to my principle of no claims, no insurance. That's the main reason why we're here, right? I mean, things will go wrong. No matter how much prevention you do in your life, you'll know that personally and business-wise, something will go wrong that you didn't. That's one other thing of the 27, 8 years, right? I mean, people say, like, have you not seen everything by now? And I guarantee you not. There's always something happening where you thought like, okay, I wasn't thinking about that. So totally right, yeah.
So you have a lot of things happening, and always, but how do you train a good claims handler?
That's a very valid question. Maybe links to the question back earlier about how to attract people. It's a very technical function, which depends a lot of experience. When I think back of my life, I was seated in my early days next to a very senior guy. I remember that when I started doing especially commercial claims, I remember I had just opposite me this guy, and that was before we all had these emails and phones, like 28 years, it's quite a bit back. The letters came in the morning and all that. And I listened to this guy on the phone. I read his letters. I had discussions on cases. That's how I learned. I learned from him, observing him. And of course, I came along with an professional insurance trade. I went to school. I went to university later to learn my tools, to learn my rucksack, right? To understand how insurance in theory works.
You studied insurance at the university?
No, I did an apprenticeship, which is in Switzerland, the dual way. And I did then Fachhausweis later on. This is like a certified insurer, I think they call it in English. And then I realized that will not be enough if I want to progress. And I did the bachelor, then a master's eventually. So that's my way. So it's a combination. So if you ask me about the claims handler, manager, or whatever you call it, it comes with experience. Nobody can get up tomorrow and say, I do now the most complex things. You could be a lawyer with a good technical background. A contract is a contract. You can pretty quickly get the sense around it. You could be an engineer. You could be like me, like an apprentice. There's different ways, but the common element it all has, you have to build the experience.
Yeah. And for the claims, I said risk engineer, for example, you could be an engineer for that. Does it help if you say, okay, now Swiss Re Corporate Solution would do cyber, so you need to have an IT background? Or we do aviation, then you could be a pilot. Is that in that direction? Is that possible?
On the cyber side, yeah, sometimes these particular skill helps. In cyber, I'm with you. We don't do a lot of cyber, very limited in corporate solutions. And yeah, it will help with the IT background. And I think a pilot in aviation, that's potentially not necessary a pilot, but why not an airplane engineer or something that understands airplanes, right? So yeah, you have something there. And by the way, if I may, you as well open the door to other pools of talent. Sometimes you just look for the insurance professionals, but you start thinking different and look around and say, well, actually, no, you could start working for insurance. You could be a claims handler, right? So let's see what you have in your rucksack and what you do to make you an effective claims handler.
Great. So the training is a lot on-the-job training. You went also for some training, University of Formal. Would you use a game? Have you ever used simulators to do this, to get ready, like simulating actual cases, and you went through that, or Excel spreadsheet with plenty of cases? Have you done that?
Yeah, simulation is a big part as well, where you create a safe environment where people can test certain things, and as I said before, as I'm passing on, so you do scenario planning. You actually take particular cases, especially once they're closed, you take them on the side and say, this is a good case to look at. Let's make a case out of it to learn from it. And you go away to whoever, could be underwriting, risk engineering, claims, it depends what you're targeting, and take it away for a structured learning. absolutely.
So you kind of in a meeting room, in an online Zoom or something like that.
Exactly.
And you go through it. Guys, this was the case. This is how it looked like. That's how we reacted. That's how you do it now.
Exactly. That's the way to learn. And today, even like for the customers, we at Swiss Re do loss scenario plannings, which basically means we work with customers through potential events. And it's funny enough, corporates, they're very well prepared with their plans, their business continuity and all that. But when it really hits you, that's the moment you need to know it works, right? And you better test that before it happens. And we as well engage with our corporates to really make sure we have this opportunity to test. So yeah, so you learn from experience, you try to anticipate, but you need to create a simulation environment as well where you can test things before they really happen.
So a claims person must learn a lot, see a lot of cases. Well, now we've seen with AI and ChatGPT, can't it do your job instead much faster and cheaper?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of technology. A couple of years back, people talked about blockchain and that will kill a lot of the business. And when you think about tech revolution, before we all had laptops and iPads and whatever, everybody all said like we're going to be not needed anymore because the machines will do. And in reality, with the data analytical world we live in today, we capture ever more data points, and I have more people doing FNOL, first notification of loss, than I had like maybe 20 years ago. So sometimes technology is not only a step forward, but when you look at ChatGPT, I mean, this is going to change the world tremendously the next coming years. I think we're right now observing change faster than we ever anticipated. And I think when you read a bit of articles and all that, I mean, there's the people who are very worried it has to be very, very quickly contained and regulated and governance around it. Others say like the sky is the limit. We should explore the universe and do whatever we can. What does it mean for claims? I mean, yes, we started working about 2 years, even longer ago, and we in claims do actually particular things already using the ChatGPT technology. I mean, I'll see a future where we have a hybrid world. Yeah, some jobs will disappear, new jobs will emerge. I think a claims handler will have much better tools at hand, much more connectivity to the things. He said like, hey, Philip, we had such a case a year ago, remember? And you settled it like this. Now you have the exact similar case and you will go about this like that. Are you sure?
So you have more as an assistant, basically. Every claims person would have an assistant in the form of an AI.
I'll use it more like a cockpit. I would think in 5 years from now, we will be sitting in front of our screens, maybe even have glasses on. I don't, maybe that's too crazy, right? But we will have a system that has a couple of uncomfortable questions to ask. Say, well, Philip, on a Monday morning, the exact same case is X, and on a Friday afternoon, you do the Y. So it will hold you accountable. Consistent people decisions are, there's a good book I recommend to you. It's called Noise. So, if you read about bias and noise around bias, so I think the machine will eliminate a lot of that. What the machine will not be able to do in 5 years is give the human touch, right? So we still need to see where that goes, but there will be more challenge, more data points. There will be a very hybrid way of working. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You just touched on Web3 before. It doesn't seem that the insurance industry has been really keen on moving into that or tackling it or taking it. How do you see Web3 for claims? Does it have any role to play?
Guess you just put your finger to a very interesting topic and of course to a sore point of the insurance industry, that we've not been very good with technology, with interactions with customers and embedding. One of the biggest pain points in the industry is the entire data topic, right? Every broker, insurance company, customer, we all use data so differently and make it accessible so differently. So the bigger topic is to align towards a standard and find ways to then make Web3 and other things more attractive. So yes, there's of course a place for that, but there's some steps to go there.
Now we're nearing the end of our nice discussion. What kind of life advice would you have for the next generations of claims managers or claims handlers?
Be curious in your life. I mean, that brought me to be what I do today. Stay curious, be open-minded. Make sure you do your homework as a claims person, right? There's a technical angle to it. And be patient, because experience doesn't grow on a tree. You cannot buy it out of a bag, but you really have to spend time. And so that's really my advice. Stay curious, be patient, and give yourself the time. Yeah.
So be curious and be patient. That would be the last 2 words of our discussion. So thank you very much, Marc, for your discussion. It was very interesting for me. I learned quite a lot of things and there's a good vibe in there. So thank you very much and have a great claims life.
Thank you very much.
Ciao.
Bye, Philip. Ciao. Bye.
That's all for today's episode, where we brought you some of the latest and greatest from the training, technology, and insurance worlds. Thanks for listening, and thanks to our guests for sharing the valuable insights with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our channel and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. You can also find us on YouTube or LinkedIn, where you can watch the full video of this interview and many others. Do you struggle to capture the knowledge of your experts? Contact us. We'll record engaging interviews with them for you to share. Until next time, stay safe and stay insured. Cheers!